You are lying in your bed at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation from 5 years ago that still makes your stomach twist with a hot, familiar shame. You reach for your phone, letting the cold blue light wash over your face, hoping the endless, frictionless feed of strangers' lives will drown out the deafening noise of your own regrets. You comfort yourself with the thought that tomorrow is a new day, a blank slate, a chance to leave your mistakes behind and finally become the person you were meant to be. But this comforting promise of a fresh start, this idea that time will simply wash away your failures, is the most elaborate, cowardly lie your mind has ever constructed. What if there is no moving forward, no clean slate, no escape from your history, but only the exact life you are living right now, handed back to you to live over and over again for all of eternity? Imagine the demon who brings you this news standing at the foot of your bed. Would you weep with gratitude, or would you scream in absolute paralyzing terror? Welcome to Werden, the philosophy of becoming. This channel does not exist to make your day easier, to provide you with simple life hacks, or to offer you a warm, philosophical blanket to hide beneath when the world becomes too cold and demanding. To question is what it means to be human, and the questions we ask here are designed to violently dismantle the very foundations of the reality you take for granted. We exist to hold up a heavy, unyielding mirror to the darkest, most uncomfortable corners of your psyche, and to ask you to look at your reflection without flinching, without blinking, and without reaching for a convenient excuse. If you are seeking comfort, sedation, or a sophisticated intellectual justification for your own stagnation, I urge you to stop listening right now and return to the sleepwalking existence that modern society has so carefully engineered for you. But if there is a part of you that is exhausted by the numbness, a part of you that feels a deep existential hunger for something real, something heavy, something that demands absolutely everything from you, then stay with me. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, because today we are going to explore the single most devastating, terrifying, and ultimately liberating thought experiment ever conceived by a human mind. We are going to strip away the safety nets of time, hope, and progress, and we are going to leave you completely exposed to the crushing gravity of your own life. Before we can even begin to understand the cure that philosophy offers, we must deeply, thoroughly understand the disease. And your disease, the sickness that infects almost every single human being living in the modern world, is your fundamental perception of time. From the very moment you drew your first breath and began to understand the language of your culture, you were handed a specific, highly engineered map of reality. You were taught, both implicitly through the way society functions and explicitly through the stories you were told, that time is a straight line. You visualize time as an arrow. You imagine that this arrow is drawn back in the heavy, immutable bow of the ancient past, released to fly straight through the fleeting, invisible air of the present moment, destined to land somewhere far away in the misty, shimmering target of the future. This linear view of time is not a biological fact, and it is certainly not the only way human beings have experienced existence. Ancient cultures, from the Mayans to the early Greeks to various Eastern traditions, viewed time as a circle, a great wheel of seasons and cycles that endlessly returned upon itself. But the linear arrow is the foundational operating system of the entire modern Western world. It was gifted to us originally by centuries of theology, which promised its followers that human history was a grand, unfolding narrative moving purposefully toward a magnificent conclusion. There was a beginning in a garden, and there would be an end in a city of gold. There was a judgment day, a final redemption, a celestial heaven where all the senseless suffering, all the bloodshed, all the disease, and all the quiet agonies of the mortal world would finally be justified, washed away, and made whole. When the modern age arrived, when science, reason, and industry supposedly killed the old gods and emptied the churches, we did not actually abandon this psychological map. We were too terrified to let it go. We simply took a bucket of secular paint and covered over the religious words. We replaced the word heaven with the word progress. We replace the concept of divine salvation with the concept of economic success, career advancement, technological utopia, or simply the mythical, magical land called someday. We maintain the exact same psychological architecture, which is the deeply ingrained belief that the ultimate meaning and justification of our lives is always located somewhere up ahead, slightly out of reach in a future that has not yet arrived. Look at how you live your life based on this map. Look at the language you use every single day, the phrases that slip from your mouth without you even realizing the profound psychological damage they reveal. You say you just need to get through the week. You say you are just trying to kill some time until your appointment. You spend 5 days of your week looking forward to the weekend, and you spend your entire winter looking forward to the summer vacation. You spend your 20s looking forward to the stability of your 30s, and you spend your entire working life looking forward to the day you can finally retire. You treat the present moment, the very second you are breathing in right now, the only actual piece of reality that concretely exists in the universe, as if it were an obstacle. You treat your own present existence as a mildly irritating delay, a waiting room you are forced to sit in before your real life finally begins. But what actually happens in a waiting room? When you go to a dentist's office and sit in the waiting room, you do not truly live. You zone out. You pick up a magazine you do not care about and flip through pages you will not remember. You stare blankly at the wall. You do not invest your soul, your passion, or your deep attention into the waiting room because you believe with absolute certainty that you are about to be called somewhere else. This is exactly how you treat your brief, miraculous existence on this planet. You live in a state of perpetual postponement. The linear view of time is the ultimate psychological safety net because it grants you the lethal luxury of discarding yourself. It allows you to look at your daily failures, your moral compromises, your cowardice, your lack of discipline, and your overwhelming mediocrity, and toss them out the window of a moving car. You look at your past, the relationships you ruined because you were too selfish to communicate, the years you wasted paralyzed by the fear of what other people might think of you, the bold decisions you backed away from at the last second, and you comfort yourself by saying, "That was the old me. That is behind me now. I am moving forward. Tomorrow, the sun will rise. Tomorrow is a blank slate. And next year, I will finally start writing that book. I will finally leave this toxic relationship. I will finally look in the mirror and be proud of the person staring back at me." The straight line gives you the luxury of hope. But I want you to understand that in this context, hope is not a virtue. Hope is not a warm, uplifting spiritual force. Hope is an anesthetic. It is a highly addictive psychological drug that numbs you to the unbearable, tragic reality that you are wasting your life right now. By always placing your redemption, your happiness, and your true self in the future, hope gives you permission to be half alive, cowardly, and sedated in the present. You become a ghost haunting your own timeline, always leaning forward toward a tomorrow that never arrives, never fully inhabiting the space you currently occupy. And when the present moment becomes too quiet, when the waiting room becomes too silent and you start to hear the terrifying, undeniable ticking of your own biological clock, you panic. You realize on some subconscious level that the future is a phantom and you are terrified of being alone with the reality of the present. So, modern humanity has built an entire trillion-dollar technological civilization designed solely to rescue you from the quietness of the present. You reach into your pocket, you pull out a rectangle of glowing glass, and you inject a stream of synthetic dopamine directly into your optic nerve. You scroll, you swipe, you consume fast media, you engage in shallow, performative digital debates, and you watch endless, perfectly curated videos of other people performing their lives, all to ensure that you never have to sit alone in a room with the terrifying weight of your own mind. You flee from the heavy, demanding, bleeding texture of physical reality into a frictionless, anesthetized virtual void. But what if the map is wrong? What if time is not an arrow moving perpetually forward into a better, brighter, more redeemed tomorrow? What if the concept of next is the greatest deception ever orchestrated by the human ego to protect itself from the blinding, burning, heavy light of now? To find the answer, we must travel back in time. We must leave the loud, distracted digital noise of the modern world and go to a place of absolute, chilling, majestic silence. The year is 1881. The month is August. We are in Sils Maria, a tiny, brutally beautiful village in the Swiss Alps, nestled deep in the upper Engadine Valley. The air here is incredibly thin, sharp, and freezing. The towering snow-capped peaks of the mountains cast long, indifferent, ancient shadows over the dark, crystal-clear alpine lakes. And walking slowly, painfully along the edge of Lake Silvaplana is a man who is intimately, violently acquainted with the absolute limits of human physical and psychological suffering. His name is Friedrich Nietzsche. At this point in his life, Nietzsche is not the triumphant, legendary philosopher whose name will echo through the halls of academia and popular culture a century later. He is a ghost of a man. He is only 36 years old, but his body is fundamentally, irreparably broken. He suffers from blinding, paralyzing migraines that strike without warning and last for hundreds of hours, forcing him to lie completely still in darkened, silent hotel rooms, vomiting repeatedly into a basin, unable to even open his eyes against the agonizing intrusion of light. His eyesight is failing rapidly, rendering him nearly blind and making the physical act of reading or writing a literal torture. His digestion is completely ruined, his nerves are shattered. He has been forced to resign from his prestigious, highly respected professorship at the University of Basel because his health simply cannot sustain the work of lecturing. His social life is a wasteland. His friends have slowly drifted away, unable or unwilling to deal with his intensity, his radical ideas, and his chronic illness. The academic establishment he once belonged to has turned its back on him, viewing him as a strange, erratic outcast. His books, the very books that contain thoughts that will one day shake the absolute foundations of Western civilization, deconstruct morality, and reshape the 20th century, are completely ignored by the public. They are printed at his own expense and sell perhaps 40 or 50 copies. He is utterly alone. He is in near constant, unremitting physical agony, and he is a complete categorical failure in the eyes of the polite, successful society he lives in. It is vital to understand this context, because if a wealthy, healthy, comfortable aristocrat sitting in a warm Parisian cafe with a cup of coffee came up with the philosophical concept we are about to discuss, it would be a neat parlor trick. It would be an abstract, academic luxury, but it did not come from a place of comfort. It came from a man who had every single reason to curse existence. It came from a man who had every right to view life as an unjust prison sentence and time as a cruel, sadistic torturer. It is here, in this state of absolute physical and social ruin, walking through the pine woods near the lake, stopping beside a massive pyramidal block of stone near the village of Surlage, that a thought strikes him. It does not come to him as a slow, methodical, academic deduction built over months of careful reading. It hits him like a physical blow. It flashes into his mind like a sudden bolt of lightning, illuminating a pitch-black landscape. He later wrote in his autobiography that this thought came to him 6,000 feet beyond man and time. It was an idea so overwhelming, so utterly devastating, and so conceptually massive that it fundamentally altered the course of his life, became the gravitational center of his entire philosophy, and changed the history of human thought forever. He called it the eternal recurrence, the eternal return of the same. Nietzsche realized something profound and terrifying about the relationship between physical matter and the expanse of time. He reasoned that if the universe is finite in its matter, meaning if there's a limited, bounded, exact amount of energy and mass in existence, but time is infinite, reaching backward into the past without beginning and forward into the future without end, then a terrifying mathematical certainty emerges, eventually over billions, trillions, or incomprehensible eons of years. Every single possible configuration of that finite matter must exhaust itself. The universe is like a grand cosmic deck of cards being shuffled by a blind dealer. If you have a standard deck of 52 cards, there is a massive, almost unimaginable, but ultimately finite number of ways those cards can be arranged. If you sit at a table and shuffle that deck an infinite number of times, eventually, by sheer unbreakable mathematical necessity, you must deal the exact same sequence of cards again. And once all combinations have been exhausted, the universe must begin to repeat itself, not just once, not just twice, but infinitely. It must play out the exact same cosmic drama over and over forever. The exact same stars must form, burn out, and collapse. The exact same planets must cool. The exact same civilizations must rise and fall. And you, the exact person listening to this voice right now, must be born again. Live the exact same life, make the exact same choices, suffer the exact same pains, and die the exact same death an infinite number of times. Now, modern theoretical physicists, cosmologists, and philosophers of science can argue about the thermodynamics, the theory of entropy, the expansion of the universe, and the quantum mechanics of this idea until the end of time. But to view the eternal return merely as a theory of theoretical physics to be debated on a chalkboard is to completely, disastrously, and tragically miss the point. Nietzsche was not a physicist trying to map the behavior of subatomic particles. He was the ultimate psychologist, diving without a tether into the darkest, most dangerous depths of the human soul. He did not truly care about the literal mechanics of the cosmos. He cared about what this thought does to the human mind. He conceived of the eternal return not as a scientific hypothesis to be proven in a laboratory, but as a psychological test, a spiritual weight, a brutal, inescapable crucible designed to burn away everything that is false, cowardly, hypocritical, and half-hearted inside of you. In his masterpiece, The Gay Science, and in a famous aphorism titled The Heaviest Burden, Nietzsche introduces this thought experiment not with a dry mathematical equation, but with a scene of absolute claustrophobic, suffocating terror. I want you to listen to the words he wrote very carefully. I want you to stop whatever else you are doing in your mind. I want you to imagine these words being spoken directly to you by a dark, shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room you are in right now, in the dead of night, when all the distractions of the world have gone quiet. What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, this life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Even this spider and this moonlight between the trees, and even this moment and I myself, the eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again, and you with it, speck of dust. Stop the video playing in your mind. Freeze the frame. Look at the demon standing in the corner of your room. Look at the ancient wooden hourglass in his hand, the sand falling relentlessly, silently through the narrow glass neck. What is your immediate, visceral, biological reaction to this proposition? Do not give me the noble, philosophical answer you think you should give. Feel the truth in your gut. Nietzsche tells us exactly what the average human being would do. He writes, "Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Why? Why is this thought so fundamentally unbearable? Why does it cause us to fall to our knees in horror and gnash our teeth in despair? It is not because the demon promises hellfire. Hellfire is an external punishment, a torture inflicted by an outside force, a consequence handed down by an angry God that you can blame. The terror of the demon is far, far worse than hellfire because the demon does not bring fire. He brings a mirror. He promises you nothing but yourself. He promises your own life, exactly as it is, exactly as you have built it, with all its dirt, its compromises, its hidden shames, and its wasted hours handed back to you on an infinite, unbreakable loop. To fully understand why this is the heaviest burden ever conceived by human consciousness, we must turn to another brilliant observer of the human condition, the novelist Milan Kundera, who wrote a literary masterpiece directly wrestling with the ghost of Nietzsche's Demon. He called his book The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Early in the novel, Kundera points out a profound, chilling German proverb, einmal ist keinmal, once is never, or translated another way, what happens but once might as well not have happened at all. Kundera argues that if we only live one single life, if everything happens only a single time and then vanishes forever into the abyss of history, then life is incredibly light. It has no real anchoring gravity. It floats away like a shadow on a cloudy day. If you make a terrible mistake, if you betray your closest friend, if you ruin your health, if you waste a decade of your youth paralyzed by anxiety, it eventually disappears into the void of the past. The history of your life, and indeed the history of the entire world, is just a sketch, a rough draft drawn on a napkin that never gets turned into a final, permanent painting. If a war happens only once, Kundera says, it is a bloody, terrible event, but eventually it fades into the harmless, silent pages of a history book. A life that disappears once and for all, that does not return, is without weight. It is light, and this lightness is exactly what allows us to be so remarkably careless with our time. It is what allows us to sleepwalk through our days, making compromises, taking the easy way out, betraying our own potential, because subconsciously we know that none of it is permanent. We know that the grave will eventually erase the evidence of our cowardice. But the moment the demon speaks, the moment you introduce the eternal return into the psychological equation, the entire architecture of reality inverts completely. If every single action you take, every single word you speak, every single thought that crosses your mind, and every single compromise you make is going to be repeated an infinite number of times, then every single fraction of a second acquires a terrifying, crushing, absolute gravity. The unbearable lightness of being vanishes instantly, and suddenly everything matters. Everything is etched in stone. Everything is written in blood on the fabric of eternity. Think about the brutal implications of this for your daily life. If you decide to spend the next 3 hours mindlessly scrolling through a feed of meaningless, algorithmically generated videos, numbing your brain because you are too tired to face the silence of your own thoughts, you are not just wasting 3 hours on a random Tuesday night. You are not just killing time. You are sealing those 3 hours into the immutable, unchangeable architecture of eternity. You are decreeing with your physical actions that you will sit in that exact chair, looking at that exact glowing screen, feeling that exact low-grade hum of empty dissatisfaction an infinite number of times forever. If you stay in a relationship that is slowly, quietly suffocating your soul, simply because you are afraid of the temporary pain of being alone, or because you do not want to deal with the logistics of a breakup, you are not just compromising for a few years until things figure themselves out. You are signing an unbreakable cosmic contract to experience that exact suffocation, that exact silent, creeping resentment across the breakfast table, that exact feeling of dying slowly next to someone who does not understand you forever. If you bite your tongue, if you swallow your pride, if you do not speak your truth to the world because you are deeply afraid of what your peers, your family, or your society might think of you, you are not just being polite. You are choosing an eternity of silence, an eternity of shrinking, an eternity of cowardice, echoing forever in the hollow, repeating chambers of the universe. This is why we curse the demon. We curse him because he strips away our ultimate, most cherished defense mechanism. He destroys the illusion of the blank slate tomorrow. He takes away the straight line of progress. He takes away our ability to comfortably say, next time I will do better. He forces us to look at the dirt, the compromises, the smallness, and the agonizing boredom of our actual lived reality. And he points a long, ancient finger at it and says, here, eat this forever. It is very easy to imagine yourself standing tall and saying yes to the demon if you only allow yourself to think of your greatest triumphs and your happiest moments. It is easy to puff out your chest and say, yes, Of course I will repeat the day I fell in love. Yes, I will gladly repeat the day my child was born, the day I achieved my greatest victory, the moment I stood on the mountaintop and felt the sun on my face, the day I felt completely alive. But the demon is a strict, merciless dealer. He does not allow you to edit the film of your life. There is no skip button in eternity. There is no fast-forward feature. You cannot compile a highlight reel of your best moments and discard the rest. The demon specifically says every pain and every joy and everything unutterably small or great. You must take the whole package. You must swallow the bitterest poison along with the sweetest wine. You must relive the darkest, most agonizing night of your soul. You must relive the precise moment of betrayal that broke your heart into 1,000 jagged pieces and left you gasping for air on the bathroom floor. You must relive the humiliating public failure that made you want to crawl into a hole and disappear from the face of the earth. You must relive the physical, tearing agony of disease, the slow, terrifying degradation of your own body, the devastating, suffocating grief of standing beside the grave of someone you loved more than your own life, watching the cold dirt fall onto the wood of their coffin, knowing you will never hear their voice again. And perhaps, in a very strange way, even more terrifying than the grand cinematic tragedies of life, you must relive the agonizing, soul-crushing boredom. Think about the sheer, overwhelming volume of mediocrity in a standard human life. You must relive the thousands upon thousands of hours spent stuck in traffic, staring blankly at the red taillights of the car in front of you, feeling your blood pressure rise and your life slowly draining away. You must relive the hundreds of days spent sitting under buzzing fluorescent office lights, performing a job you fundamentally despise, feeling the vital creative energy of your youth leaking out of your fingertips into a plastic keyboard to make a faceless corporation slightly richer. You must relive the endless string of Tuesday evenings where absolutely nothing happens, where you eat a lukewarm microwave meal in silence, wash the dishes, stare at a blank wall, and wait for sleep to take you, only to wake up and do the exact same routine all over again. Can you bear it? Can you bear the thought that the tiny spider spinning its web in the corner of your room right now is a spider you will be forced to watch spin that exact web infinite times? Can you bear the thought that the sigh you just breathed out, that small, almost imperceptible expression of daily exhaustion, will be breathed out again endlessly forever? So look at the demon again. Look at him standing there in the corner of your room, patient, eternal, holding the entire weight of your life in his hands. He has asked his question, and right now, in this moment, with the life you have actually lived, most of us would scream, most of us would fall to our knees and curse him, because the life we are living is not one we would choose to repeat even once, let alone for all eternity. And that reaction, that horror, that scream rising in your throat, that is the diagnosis. That is the demon holding up the mirror and showing you with brutal honesty exactly how much of your one and only life you are wasting. The terror you feel is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of it. Because here is the question that will haunt the space between this video and the next. If the eternal return is the heaviest burden a human being can carry, then how on earth does anyone ever learn to say yes to it? How do you transform this curse into a blessing? How do you look at the demon with all your pain and all your shame and all your wasted time, and instead of screaming, how do you call him a god? There is an answer. Nietzsche found it in the ruins of his own broken body, in the loneliness of those mountain paths. He gave it a name, and it is the most dangerous, most liberating, most demanding idea he ever conceived. We will descend into it all the way to the bottom in the second part of this essay. Until then, sit with the demon. Do not look away from him. Let his question burn, because the discomfort you feel right now is the most honest thing that has happened to you in a very long time. This was part 1. Part 2 is where the abyss turns into wings. Subscribe, turn on your notifications so it does not slip past you, and I will see you there. Raise your sails and become who you are.